I should have known something was off when the elevator doors opened with a chime that sounded different, deeper, more refined than the one I'd heard during my apartment tour last week. But I was too focused on counting my steps, on memorizing the route from elevator to door, on proving to myself that I could handle this move alone. 23 steps forward, turn right. 12 more steps to apartment door. My white cane tapped against polished flooring. That felt smoother than it should have been. Colder too. The air smelled expensive, not the faint mustiness I'd detected in the lobby, but something crisp and clean like money itself had a scent. I reached out, found the door handle. It turned easily. Unlocked. Relief washed over me. The building manager must have left it open like she'd promised. I stepped inside, and that's when everything went wrong. The floor beneath my feet wasn't wood. It was marble. I could tell from the way sound echoed differently, from the temperature seeping through my sneakers. My studio apartment had creaky wooden floors. The rental photos had specifically mentioned authentic hardwood character. This was not that. My heart began to pound, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe I miscounted. Maybe the apartment was fancier than I'd realized. Maybe the scent hit me like a physical wall. Sandalwood, rich and dark, smoke like expensive cigars. And underneath it all, something raw and primal that made every instinct in my body scream danger. Alpha musk. Not just one alpha. 3 distinct scents, layered and intertwined, so potent that my knees actually weakened. Well. The voice came from my right, deep, amused, with an edge that made my skin prickle. Enjoying the view, Omega? I spun around so fast my cane clattered against something solid. My hood slipped back, exposing my face, and I cursed internally. I always kept it up in public, a small shield against the world's stares. I'm so sorry, I stammered, backing up. I think I got off on the wrong floor. I didn't mean to. Wrong floor? A second voice, softer but no less commanding, spoke from somewhere to my left. Sweetheart, this is a private penthouse. You don't just accidentally end up here. Sweetheart. The casual endearment made my stomach flip. I yanked my hood back up, fingers trembling. My scent was already leaking out. I could feel it, that traitorous lavender and vanilla that marked me as Omega, as weak as prey. He looks terrified. A third voice, lazy and observant, came from directly ahead. Either he's genuinely lost or he's the worst spy I've ever seen. I'm not a spy. The words burst out before I could stop them. I took another step back, and my cane struck something. A coffee table maybe, and suddenly I was falling, balance completely gone. Strong hands caught me before I hit the ground. The grip was firm but careful, and the scent that enveloped me was overwhelming. All 3 of them, combined into something that made my head spin and my body respond in ways I absolutely did not want it to respond. Easy there. The first voice again, closer now. I could feel breath against my ear. You're going to hurt yourself. I can manage, I said, trying to pull away, but my voice came out weak and unconvincing. Clearly, the third voice dripped sarcasm. That's why you just waltzed into the most secure floor in the building and nearly cracked your skull open. Heat flooded my face. I've been blind since birth. I've navigated subway systems, busy streets, hostile crowds. I've never needed help, never wanted pity, never asked for anything from anyone. But here in this moment, I felt completely and utterly helpless. The hands steadied me and then released me. I stood there, cane gripped tight, trying to get my breathing under control. What's your name, Omega? The second voice asked, gentle now. I swallowed hard. Luis. Luis, the first voice repeated, and I hated how my name sounded in his mouth, like he was tasting it, claiming it. Well, Luis, welcome to the King's Penthouse. I hope you enjoy your stay. Stay? My heart plummeted into my stomach. They weren't joking. I really need to go, I said quickly. This was a mistake. The elevator requires a key card to operate from this floor. The third voice informed me, and now I could hear the smile in it, which you don't have. Panic clawed up my throat. Then call building security. Have them escort me out, please. It's almost midnight, the second voice said. Security's probably dealing with the party on the 15th floor. We saw it on the cameras, looks like it might take a while. Cameras? Right, because of course this place had cameras. Because of course I'd stumbled into somewhere I absolutely should not be. I can wait in the hallway, I offered desperately. Don't be ridiculous, the first voice said flatly. Sit down, we'll figure this out. It wasn't a request. The alpha command in his tone made my body want to obey before my brain could even process the words. I forced myself to resist, standing straighter. I don't take orders from strangers. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, laughter, rich and genuine. I like him, the third voice said. He's got spine. Clearly more spine than sense, the first voice replied, but there was something different in his tone now. Respect, maybe? But fine. I'm Cade. The one who caught you is Asher, and the one currently enjoying this situation far too much is Kieran. Coded. Asher. Kieran. The names settled into my mind like puzzle pieces. I didn't know I was missing. Now, Cade continued. Sit down before you fall down. We're not going to hurt you, Luis, but we're also not letting you wander around a building you clearly can't navigate alone at midnight. Every independent bone in my body wanted to argue, but he was right. I'd somehow ended up 30 floors above where I was supposed to be. I had no phone signal. I'd checked the moment I'd stepped inside, and I was so disoriented that I wasn't even sure which direction the elevator was anymore. I was trapped, with 3 alphas whose scents alone were making me dizzy. Fine, I said quietly, but just until security can escort me out. Of course, Asher said, and his hand touched my elbow gently, guiding me forward. Just until then. But as I sank into what felt like the softest leather couch I'd ever touched, surrounded by scents that shouldn't feel this right, I had a terrible suspicion. Just until then was going to turn into something much, much longer. The couch was absurdly comfortable, which only made this situation more surreal. I sat rigidly on the edge, cane planted between my feet like a barrier between myself and the 3 alphas who seemed to be circling me like sharks who'd found something interesting in their territory. Your phone? Cade's voice came from somewhere in front of me. I pulled it from my jacket pocket. No signal. I think this floor is blocking it. It is, Kieran confirmed, sounding far too pleased about this fact. Military-grade signal jammers. Can't have corporate spies or nosy reporters listening in on our private conversations. Of course. Because normal people definitely had military-grade anything in their homes. Then how am I supposed to contact anyone? My voice pitched higher than I wanted it to. Relax. Asher's presence moved closer. I felt the couch dip as he sat down beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. His scent was different from his brother's, rain-soaked earth and fresh mint, cooling and calming. We're not keeping you hostage. We'll use our landline to call building security in the morning and get this sorted out. Morning? The word came out as almost a squeak. I can't stay here until morning. Why not? Cade challenged. You got somewhere better to be? The honest answer was no. My studio apartment, my actual apartment, was completely empty except for an air mattress and 3 boxes of belongings. I had no friends in this city yet, no family anywhere, no job starting until next week. I had nothing and no one, but I couldn't tell them that. I don't even know who you are, I said instead. For all I know, you could be serial killers. Another round of laughter, and despite everything, I felt my lips twitch toward a smile. Fair concern, Kieran said, but if we were serial killers, we'd be pretty bad at it. You're still breathing and Asher already told you our names. Triplet alphas, I said slowly. Pieces clicking together. That's rare. 1 in 10 million. Asher confirmed quietly. Our parents thought they'd won the genetic lottery. We thought we'd won a lifetime of being treated like circus attractions. There was something bitter in his tone, something that made him suddenly seem more real, less like a threatening stranger and more like a person with his own scars. We won't bite, Luis, Kieran added, and I could practically hear his smirk. Unless you ask nicely. Kieran, Asher said warningly, but there was fondness underneath it. I opened my mouth to respond when Cade spoke again. His tone shifted to something more serious. You're going into preheat. Every muscle in my body locked up. What? No, I have at least 4 days. Your sense says otherwise. Cade interrupted, voice matter of fact. It's already changing. Getting sweeter, richer. You probably haven't noticed because it's gradual, but we can smell it. Ice flooded my veins. I jumped to my feet, cane clutched in both hands. I need to leave right now. Luis, Asher started, but I cut him off. No, you don't understand. I can't be here. I can't be around alphas when my voice cracked. I just can't. We're not going to hurt you, Cade said. And for the first time, there was something almost gentle in his voice. We have control. I don't care about your control. The words exploded out of me. I don't know you, I don't trust you, and I'm not going to beat it. I stopped breathing hard, feeling tears prick at my eyes. I'd been through heat alone for the last 6 years, ever since I'd presented as Omega at 18. locked in my room with suppressants and water and sheer stubborn willpower. It was hell, but it was safe hell. Private hell. The alternative, being vulnerable around alphas, being that exposed and needy and desperate, was unthinkable. Then let us earn your trust, Kieran said, and his voice had lost all its teasing edge. Stay tonight. We have a guest room with a lock on the inside. You'll be completely safe. In the morning, when you're thinking clearly and we can actually get you to the right apartment, you can decide what you want to do about the heat situation. Why do you even care? I demanded. Why not just toss me out and be done with it? Silence stretched between us, heavy and loaded with something I couldn't name. Because, Asher said finally, carefully, you walked into our home and now you're our responsibility. That's what alphas do, we protect, especially omegas in distress. It was a good answer, a noble answer, but something in the way he said it felt incomplete, like there was more he wasn't saying. My mind raced through options. I could insist on leaving, but I genuinely had no idea how to navigate this building in my current state of disorientation. I could demand they call security right now, but what if they were telling the truth about the party situation? I'd be stuck in a hallway somewhere, vulnerable and alone. At least here, for whatever reason, they seemed inclined to help rather than hurt. One night, I said finally, hating how my voice shook. Just tonight, guest room with a lock, and tomorrow I'm gone. Deal, Asher agreed immediately. Cade made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been something else entirely. Kieran was quiet for a moment before saying, tomorrow's a long way away, Luis. A lot can change before then. The words sent a shiver down my spine. Not entirely from fear. Asher stood and I felt his hand hover near my elbow. Come on, I'll show you where you'll be sleeping. As I followed him, cane tapping against that expensive marble, I tried to ignore the feeling of two sets of eyes watching my every move. Tried to ignore the way my body was hyper-aware of their sense. The way something deep in my omega hindbrain was whispering that this place, these alphas, felt right in a way that terrified me. Tried to ignore the certainty settling into my bones that Kieran was correct. Tomorrow was a long way away, and I had a sinking feeling that by the time it arrived, nothing would be the same. The guest room was bigger than my entire studio apartment. Asher had given me a brief tour, bathroom to the left. Closets stocked with clothes that would probably fit. Windows that overlooked the city from dizzying heights I couldn't see but could somehow feel. If you need anything, he'd said before leaving, just call out, we'll hear you. That was an hour ago. Now I sat on the edge of a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud, listening to my own heartbeat refuse to slow down. My skin felt too tight, too sensitive. Temperature kept spiking and dropping. Every preheat symptom I'd learned to recognize was announcing itself right on schedule. Damn it. Cade had been right. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was hyper-aware of the three alphas somewhere beyond this door. Their scents had seeped into my clothes, my hair, probably my skin. Lavender and vanilla mixed with sandalwood, smoke, rain, and mint until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. A soft knock made me jump. Luis, you awake? Kieran's voice quieter than before. I could pretend to be asleep. Should pretend to be asleep. Yeah, I heard myself say instead. The door opened slowly. Footsteps approached. Light and careful, stopping a few feet from the bed. Can't sleep either? He asked. Obviously not, since I'm talking to you. A low chuckle. There's that attitude. Good. I was worried we'd scared it out of you. I heard him move but not toward me. Fabric rustled and I realized he'd sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall, giving me space. The gesture was unexpectedly thoughtful. Why are you really here? I asked into the darkness. You don't know me. There's no reason for you to help. The silence that followed felt different from before. Heavier. Like he was choosing his words with unusual care. Honestly, Kieran's voice had lost its playful edge entirely. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. That's not an answer. No, it's not, he agreed. But it's the truth. The moment you walked through that door, something shifted. For all three of us, like, he paused, searching. Like everything suddenly clicked into place. Does that make sense? No, I whispered. That doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, I didn't think it would. Another pause. Can I ask you something? I nodded, then realized he might not be able to see me in whatever lighting existed. Sure, why do you hide? His question was gentle, curious without being invasive. The hood, the way you pull into yourself. You do it like it's instinct. My hands twisted in my lap. Because people stare. They either pity the poor blind Omega, or they see weakness and think it's an invitation. The hood helps me disappear. You don't need to disappear here, Kieran said quietly. We're not going to pity you, and anyone who sees weakness when they look at you is an idiot. I laughed, but it came out bitter. You don't know anything about me. I know you navigated your way into a locked penthouse, he countered. I know you stood your ground against 3 strange alphas instead of cowering. I know you've been surviving in this city completely alone, which takes more guts than most people have. That's not weakness, Luis, that's strength. Something in my chest constricted painfully. When was the last time someone had called me strong? When had anyone looked past the disability to see the person underneath? I'm nobody special, I said, voice barely audible. Just a blind omega with no family, no money, nothing to offer anyone. Stop. The sharpness in Kieran's voice made me flinch. Don't do that. Don't diminish yourself like you're worthless. I'm just being realistic. You're being cruel to yourself, he interrupted. And I won't sit here and listen to you tear yourself down. Silence fell between us. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged with something I couldn't name. Understanding, maybe. Connection. Get some rest, Kieran finally said, and I heard him stand. Tomorrow we'll figure out the apartment situation, get you settled properly. Everything will look different in the morning. He was leaving. He was actually going to leave without pushing, without demanding anything, without taking advantage of my vulnerable state. Kieran? His name left my lips before I could stop it. Yeah, thank you. The words felt inadequate for what I actually wanted to say. Thank you for sitting on the floor to make me comfortable. Thank you for calling me strong. Thank you for seeing me. He was quiet for a long moment. Then so softly, I almost missed it. Anytime, sweetheart. The door clicked shut, and I was alone again. But somehow, the room felt less empty than before. I lay back on the bed, pressing a hand against my racing heart. This was dangerous. These feelings blooming in my chest. This attraction that went beyond physical response to their alpha sense. It was all dangerous. I'd spent 6 years carefully constructing walls around myself. Staying independent, staying isolated, staying safe. In one night, 3 strangers had started dismantling those walls brick by brick, and I didn't know how to stop them. Didn't know if I wanted to stop them. The preheat symptoms were getting worse. I could feel my body temperature rising, skin growing more sensitive. By tomorrow night, maybe the night after, I'd be in full heat. And if I was still here, no, I wouldn't be. Tomorrow I'd go to my actual apartment, lock myself in, and ride it out alone like always. This was just a strange detour, a surreal midnight encounter that would become a weird story I'd maybe tell someone someday. Except even as I thought it, I didn't believe it. Because Kieran was right about one thing. Something had clicked when I'd walked through that door. Something that felt inevitable and terrifying and completely beyond my control. I'd felt it when Asher's hand had steadied me, gentle and sure. I'd felt it when Cade's voice had gone soft, despite his commanding nature. I'd felt it when Kieran had sat on the floor just to make me comfortable. Whatever this was, it wasn't simple. It wasn't safe. And as I finally drifted towards sleep, surrounded by their lingering scents, one thought echoed through my mind. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. And yet, I desperately wished morning would never arrive. The smell of coffee woke me rich and dark, mixed with the sizzle of bacon and something sweet that made my empty stomach clench with hunger. I'd been so disoriented last night that I'd completely forgotten to eat, and now my body was reminding me of that mistake with sharp pangs. I sat up slowly, orienting myself in the unfamiliar room. The bed was absurdly soft, the kind of luxury I'd never experienced. For a moment I considered staying here, hiding until they forgot about me. But my stomach had other plans. Grabbing my cane, I made my way carefully to the door. The hallway was wide, I could tell from the way sound traveled, and I counted steps as I moved, trying to build a mental map. Morning, Luis. Sleep well? Asher's voice came from somewhere ahead, warm and welcoming. Not really, I admitted, because lying seemed pointless when my scent probably gave away every anxious thought I'd had. Figured as much. I felt him approach, and then his hand touched my elbow, gentle, asking permission without words. Come on, breakfast is ready. Let me help you to the counter. Part of me wanted to refuse, to insist I could find my own way. But another part, the part that was tired of always struggling alone, let him guide me. His touch was steady and sure, and he positioned me in front of what felt like a bar stool before helping me settle onto it. A plate appeared in front of me, and I reached out carefully, finding the fork. The smells were overwhelming. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, crispy bacon. My mouth watered. You didn't have to cook for me, I said quietly. We wanted to. Kadi's voice came from across the counter, and I could feel his presence there, solid and watchful. Omegas need proper nutrition, especially when preheat is approaching. There it was again. Preheat, like they needed to constantly remind me of my biology, of my vulnerability. I'm managing just fine, I said more defensively than I intended. Your scent tells a different story. Kieran chimed in from my right, and I could practically hear the smirk in his voice. It's been getting sweeter every hour. Soon you'll smell like a bakery exploded. Heat flooded my face. Can we please not discuss my scent while I'm trying to eat? Why not? Kieran sounded genuinely curious. It's meant as praise. You have an incredible scent, Luis. Most omegas smell pleasant, but you're something else entirely. Kieran, Asher said warningly, though there was affection underneath the reproach. I'm just being honest, Kieran protested. I sighed and focused on my food, trying to ignore the warmth spreading through my chest at his words. This was dangerous territory, letting their compliments affect me, letting myself feel comfortable here, but the pancakes were perfect, fluffy and sweet, and the eggs were seasoned just right, and despite everything I found myself relaxing. It felt disturbingly normal. Sitting here with three powerful alphas, sharing breakfast like we were family instead of strangers who'd met by accident less than 12 hours ago. The thought made me uncomfortable enough that I had to mentally shake myself. This wasn't normal. This wasn't my life. So Cade said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike. We contacted building management this morning. Your actual apartment is on the 25th floor, Unit 25007. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Oh, that's good. So I can leave now? The silence that followed was heavy enough to feel like a physical weight pressing down on the room. You can, Asher finally said, each word careful and measured. But we'd really prefer if you didn't. My fork clattered against the plate. What? Stay here, Cade said, and there was no question in his voice, just certainty. At least until your heat cycle passes. It would be safer for you. I almost laughed. Safer? You want me to stay with three alphas during heat, and you think that's safer than being alone? We won't touch you without explicit permission, Cade replied, his voice dropping to something darker, more serious. We're not animals, Luis. We have self-control. Then why? My voice cracked, betraying the emotion I was trying to hide. Why do you even care what happens to me? I heard movement, footsteps approaching, and then Asher's scent grew stronger as he came to stand beside me. Rain and mint, cool and grounding, because he said softly, and I felt him crouch down so we were at eye level, even though I couldn't see him. You're ours, Luis. We felt it the second you walked through that door. And we're not gonna let you suffer through heat alone in an empty apartment when you could be here, safe, cared for, with us, ours. That single word hit me like a lightning strike, sending my heart into overdrive. You're insane, I breathed. All three of you. You don't even know me, don't we? Kieran moved closer, and I could feel his warmth now too, surrounding me on the other side. We know you're stubborn, independent to a fault, brave enough to stand your ground even when you're terrified. Strong enough to build a life completely alone in a city that destroys people. We know more than you think. That's not... I started but couldn't finish. Because what could I say? That they were wrong? They weren't. You're not saying no, Kieran observed, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. He was right. I wasn't saying no, because some desperate, lonely part of me, the part I'd been ignoring for 6 years, wanted to stay, wanted to know what it would feel like to not be alone during heat. Wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could trust these three strangers who claimed to want me. I need to think, I said finally, pushing back from the counter. I need air. Balconies through the living room, Asher said quietly. Straight ahead, then left. I'll show you. I can find it myself, I interrupted more sharply than I intended. I softened my tone. Please, I just need a minute alone. I felt them exchange glances, could sense the wordless communication happening above my head. But they let me go. I found the balcony exactly where Asher had said it would be. The door was already open and I stepped out into cool morning air that felt like salvation against my overheated skin. The city sounds washed over me, traffic far below, the distant wail of sirens, the hum of life continuing while my entire world tilted on its axis. 3 alphas, claiming I was theirs, wanting me to stay through heat. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was everything I'd told myself I could never have. I gripped the balcony railing, feeling the cold metal against my palms, and tried to think logically, but logic had abandoned me somewhere between Cade's commanding presence, Asher's gentle care, and Kieran's playful warmth. You don't have to decide right now. Cade's voice came from behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. He moved too quietly for someone so large. But before you go, there's something you should know. I turned toward him, waiting. That pull you're feeling? That connection that's making this decision harder than it should be? He paused. We're feeling it too. All three of us. It's not just alpha instinct to protect an omega. It's more than that. What are you saying? My voice came out as barely a whisper. I'm saying Cade stepped closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. That we've been waiting our entire lives for something that felt right. And you walked through our door like you were always meant to be here. My hands trembled on the railing. You can't possibly know that after one night. Can't I? His hand covered mine on the railing, warm and solid and sure. When have your instincts ever steered you wrong, Luis? When you navigate the city, you trust your other senses. Trust them now. What are they telling you? I wanted to lie. Wanted to say they were telling me to run, to protect myself, to maintain the careful independence I'd built. But that would be a lie. My instincts were screaming at me to stay, to trust, to take this terrifying leap into the unknown. I'm scared, I admitted. The words pulled from somewhere deep inside. Good, Cade said, and there was approval in his voice. Fear means you're smart enough to know this matters. Stay anyway. I stood there on that balcony, trapped between the life I'd known, safe, lonely, controlled, and the possibility of something more. Something that could destroy me or save me, and I had no way of knowing which. 24 hours, I heard myself say. I'll stay for 24 more hours, then I'll decide. Cade's thumb brushed across my knuckles in a gesture that felt almost tender. 24 hours. We can work with that. As I stood there with him, city sounds filling the silence between us, I realized something terrifying. 24 hours wouldn't be enough time to figure this out, but it might be exactly enough time to make leaving impossible. The heat hit me 36 hours later, which meant I'd already broken my 24-hour deadline and still hadn't left. I told myself I was just being practical. Waiting one more day wouldn't hurt, and the preheat symptoms were making me clumsy and disoriented. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. I didn't want to leave, but now, curled up in the guest room bed with cramps tearing through my abdomen like knives, I was regretting every choice that had led me here. The first real wave of heat was always the worst. Sudden and brutal, hitting with the force of a freight train. My body temperature spiked so fast I felt like I was burning from the inside out. Sweat soaked through my clothes within minutes, and my scent, God, my scent exploded into the air. Thick and cloying, lavender and vanilla so concentrated it made my own head spin. I clutched the sheets, trying to breathe through the pain, trying to remember the techniques I'd learned for managing this alone. But my mind was already fogging, instinct taking over rational thought. The door burst open with enough force to make me flinch. Luis, Cade's voice, but different, rougher, strained, like he was barely holding on to control himself. Don't. I managed to gasp out, please don't come in. But I could already hear footsteps. 3 sets of them moving into the room despite my protest. We're not leaving you like this, Asher said, and there was actual pain in his voice, like seeing me suffer hurt him physically. Another cramp hit, stronger than before, and I couldn't stop the sound that escaped. Half gasp, half sob. He's burning up, Kieran said, and I felt the bed dip as someone sat beside me. Cool fingers touched my forehead, and even that gentle contact made my overheated skin sing. This is worse than normal preheat. When did you last take suppressants? I tried to answer, but another wave of pain stole my words. I gestured weakly toward my bag on the chair across the room. Movement fast and decisive. Someone retrieved the bag, and I heard the sound of pills rattling. These are garbage, Cade said flatly, and there was anger underneath his words. Not at me, I realized. At whoever had sold me such inadequate medication. These wouldn't suppress a mild cold, let alone a heat cycle. Asher, get the medical-grade suppressants from the safe. Already on it, Asher replied, and I heard him leave the room at a run. Why didn't you tell us your suppressants were this weak? Kieran asked, and his hand found mine, holding it gently. They're all I could afford, I admitted, the words slurring slightly as the heat fog thickened. Insurance doesn't cover omega medication. These were $40 a month. The good ones are $300. The silence that followed was loaded with so much fury I could feel it pressing against my skin. That's going to change, Cade said, and it wasn't a suggestion, it was a promise. You're never using those again. Asher returned, and I heard the clink of pills against glass. Here, take these. They're pharmaceutical grade. They'll actually work. Hands helped me sit up, supported my weight when I swayed. Someone held a glass of water to my lips while pills were placed on my tongue. I swallowed obediently, too far gone to protest. They'll take 15 to 20 minutes to reach full effectiveness, Asher said softly. Until then, we stay. You can't. I tried to protest, but it came out weak and unconvincing. Because the truth was, I wanted them here. Their presence was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. The bed shifted as Kieran settled more firmly beside me, never letting go of my hand. We're not going anywhere, sweetheart. On my other side, Cade sat down, and I felt his fingers carefully card through my sweat-soaked hair, rhythmic and soothing, like he was trying to ground me to reality through touch alone. Asher stayed close too, and moments later I felt a cool cloth pressed against my forehead. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Breathe, Asher coached quietly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Focus on my voice. You're safe. We've got you. I tried to follow his instructions, fighting through the haze of heat and pain and overwhelming need. Gradually, so gradually, I almost didn't notice. The cramps began to ease. The suppressants were kicking in, dulling the sharp edges of the heat into something more manageable. When I could finally breathe without gasping, when the worst of the pain had receded into a low, constant ache, I opened my eyes even though I couldn't see anything with them. Why are you doing this? The question came out as barely a whisper. Cade leaned closer, and I could feel his breath against my ear when he spoke. Because you're our mate, Luis. We knew it the second you stepped into our home. Everything in us recognized you. Mate? The word I'd been half expecting, half dreading. That's not possible, I said, but my voice shook. Mates are rare. Finding one is like winning the lottery. And 3 alphas sharing 1 omega mate happens more often than you'd think with triplets. Kieran interrupted gently. Our bonds are already intertwined. We share everything, instincts, protective urges, even dreams sometimes. When we find our mate, we find them together. And your instincts are all claiming me? I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. Every single one, Asher confirmed. From the moment your scent hit us, from the first word you spoke, every part of us has been screaming mine. I couldn't process this. It was too much, too fast, too impossible. I'm nobody, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. I don't have anything to offer you. No money, no connections, no— Stop, Asher said firmly, and his hand touched my face with heartbreaking gentleness. You have yourself, your strength, your courage, your incredible spirit. That's everything, Luis. That's more than enough. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. I'd held them back for so long, 6 years of isolation, of struggling alone, of telling myself I didn't need anyone. But here, in this moment, surrounded by 3 alphas who looked at my brokenness and called it strength, I couldn't hold back anymore. I'm scared, I admitted through the tears. I'm so scared of trusting this, of believing you, of letting myself hope that maybe I don't have to be alone anymore. Fear is healthy, Cade said, still stroking my hair. It means you understand the stakes. But we'll prove ourselves to you, Luis. Every single day, in every way that matters. You belong here, with us. Kieran squeezed my hand. You don't have to believe it all at once. Just don't shut us out. Let us show you. The suppressants were working now, pulling me down into a drowsy, pain-free state that felt like floating. But before I let myself drift, I needed to say something. Okay? I breathed. Okay? I'll try. That's all we're asking, Asher said softly. And as I finally surrendered to sleep, surrounded by their warmth and their scent and their fierce protection, I felt something inside me shift. Maybe I'd walked into the wrong house. Or maybe, just maybe, I'd walked into exactly the right one. The heat lasted 3 days. 3 days of waves of need and pain, of suppressants and cool cloths and constant care. 3 days of never being alone, of always having at least one of them nearby. They worked in shifts, Cade in the mornings, Asher in the afternoons, Kieran through the nights, making sure I had water, medication, food when I could eat. They never once touched me inappropriately, never took advantage. They just cared. By the time it was over, I felt wrung out and emotionally raw, but also something else, something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Safe? I stayed after the heat ended, not because I was too weak to leave, not because I had nowhere else to go. I stayed because the thought of going back to that empty studio apartment, back to being alone, felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. The first morning after the heat broke, I woke to find Cade had already made coffee. Exactly the right temperature, exactly the right amount of cream and sugar, even though I'd never told him my preferences. He'd just paid attention. "How did you know?" I asked, cradling the warm mug. "You told me," he replied, not with words. "But the first morning you were here, I watched how long you let the coffee cool, how you added cream. I pay attention to what matters." My throat tightened. No one had ever paid attention to details like that before. Asher started reading to me in the afternoons. Not instruction manuals or news articles, but actual novels, fantasy stories about heroes and magic and impossible quests. His voice was perfect for it, expressive and warm, and I found myself looking forward to those hours more than I wanted to admit. "Why fantasy?" I asked him one day. "Because you live in reality every moment of every day," he answered thoughtfully. "You navigate a world that wasn't built for you, that makes everything harder than it needs to be. I thought maybe you'd enjoy escaping to somewhere impossible for a while." He was right, I did. Kieran made me laugh. He seemed to have an endless supply of terrible jokes and sarcastic commentary on everything from the news to the weather to his brother's cooking attempts. When I got too serious, too caught up in overthinking, he'd pull me out of it with some ridiculous observation that made laughter bubble up before I could stop it. "There it is," he'd say with satisfaction whenever he got me to laugh. "That's the sound I was looking for." They gave me space when I needed it, respected my boundaries, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. But they also made it clear they wanted me there. In 100 small ways they showed me I mattered. 2 weeks after I'd stumbled into their penthouse, I was sitting on the balcony, listening to the city sounds and trying to sort through my tangled thoughts, when Cade joined me. "You've been quiet today," he observed, settling into the chair beside mine. "Just thinking," I admitted. "About?" I hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. "About why you really want me here. I understand the mate bond thing now. I've felt it too, even though I tried not to. But I'm still me, blind, broke, carrying more baggage than an airport terminal." Cade's hand found my chin, tilting my face toward him with gentle but insistent pressure. "Listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. You are not broken, you are not damaged. You are one of the strongest people I have ever met. And we don't want you despite anything. We want you because of everything you are." My breath caught in my throat. "But I can't see you," I whispered. "I'll never see your faces, never know what you look like, never. You see us better than anyone ever has." Asher's voice came from behind me, and I felt his hand rest gently on my shoulder. I hadn't even heard him approach. "You see who we really are inside. Not our money, not our status, not our appearance, just us, the real us." Kieran's presence joined us and I felt him sit on the balcony floor near my feet. And honestly, that's terrifying. Having someone see past all the armor we've built up, all the walls we've constructed. But it's also the best thing that's ever happened to us. My throat was so tight I could barely speak. "I don't know how to do this. I've been alone my whole life. I don't know how to belong to someone." "Then we'll figure it out together," Cade said, and there was such certainty in his voice. No pressure, no timeline, no expectations except honesty. "Just stay. Be with us. Let us take care of you the way you deserve. Let us love you." Love, that word shattered something inside me, some final wall I'd been desperately holding up. The tears came again, but this time they felt different. Not tears of fear or pain, but of relief, of finally letting go of the crushing weight of always having to be strong enough, independent enough, good enough on my own. "Okay?" I whispered through the tears. "I'll stay." "Yeah?" Asher's voice was thick with emotion. "Yeah," I smiled despite the tears streaming down my face. "I'll stay with all of you." Kieran pulled me down into a hug, tight and warm and all-encompassing. Asher joined from behind, wrapping his arms around both of us. Cade's embrace completed the circle, surrounding me completely. And in that moment, wrapped in their scent and their warmth and their fierce, unwavering love, I finally understood. I hadn't walked into the wrong house that night. I'd walked into exactly the house I was meant to find. The elevator malfunction hadn't been a mistake. The unlocked door hadn't been an accident. Every step that had led me here had been leading me home. I just hadn't known it yet. "We're going to take care of you," Cade murmured against my hair. "For as long as you'll let us. Forever if you'll have us," Asher added softly. "Probably longer than that," Kieran said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. We're pretty stubborn about keeping what's ours. Ours? The word didn't scare me anymore. It felt right. Like finally finding the missing piece I hadn't known I was searching for. I love you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess them. All three of you. I don't know when it happened, but it did, and I'm tired of pretending it didn't. The arms around me tightened. We love you too, they said together. Three voices blending into one perfect harmony. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I believed I was wanted. I believed I was valued. I believed I had found my home. Not in a place, but in three alpha hearts that had recognized mine the moment we'd met. The blind Omega who walked into the wrong house and found everything he'd never known he needed.